How do soap operas keep viewers coming back every day, and what can we learn from them to stay invested in our own forever save files? Because I'm a total nerd, I've come up with a totally real, mathematical, and scientifically accurate formula to keep you hooked on your Sims and their storylines. I know it looks a little complicated, but it's actually really simple, and it works. So let me break it down. But first, what was the trigger for my beautiful mind moment of genius? This all started after I binge-watched the new Netflix series Ransom Canyon in just one weekend. It's like a soapy western of sorts, very melodramatic. And it didn't hurt that the story centered around 3 legacies, which of course as a simmer I gobbled up. It's giving serialized Hallmark movie with a western twist, I would say. And according to the interwebs, it's a hybrid between the shows Virgin River and Yellowstone. I've seen neither of them, but they're definitely on my list now. While it's not your classic run-of-the-mill daytime soap opera, it definitely has soap opera elements, so we're gonna categorize it as a soap opera, as a Netflix serialized soap opera. It definitely was a soap with all the suds. It had love triangles, family feuds and secrets, scandal and betrayal, and of course men without shirts, which might not be a classic soap opera trope, but I think it's something we should introduce. It's been introduced with this series for sure. It also had a lot of backstory that was slowly revealed. It was kind of drip-fed with every episode, making the story even more and more enticing. And there were also a ton of intertwined storylines running in parallel. So much so and so entangled that I actually had to Google the family tree to make sense of all of it. Spoiler alert, it's pretty wild. So if you haven't watched it yet and you want to watch it, maybe click away from this video. So here it is, all laid out. So I still had to map out the family relationships myself, even after seeing this chart, because it was just really complicated. It was like, who's the brother of who, and who's the niece of who, and why are they not as complicated? But this map really helped me get an overview of all the connections between the characters, all the drama. There are literally 4 love triangles, and I actually kind of spoiled myself on one of them because I think I wasn't further than like episode 2 when I searched for this because I was so confused. And there's a character in this chart, at least one character, that hadn't been introduced at that point yet, and she's part of a love triangle. I didn't even realize it, but yeah. Long story short, I aim to have save files as messy as this show. And of course, the season ended on a cliffhanger, so I can't wait to see how the story unfolds. And it got me thinking about soapy series, soap operas in general, and how they keep the flame burning. Because they do this actually every single day, your classic soap opera. And I was thinking can we transfer this to our forever save files? Can we learn from that? And I keep going on about forever save files, but you're like, dang, what's a forever save file? It's a term that's been adopted from the Minecraft community and has caught on now in the Sims community to describe something we've been trying to do all along. It's essentially a save file you're committed to playing, that you play with for years on end. And since you're playing it for a while, it develops rich world history, that develops organically. The storylines and legacies evolve naturally over time, but it doesn't come without a struggle. In their video, Why Do We Always Quit The Sims? By Catchy talks about various reasons why we give up on our save files. Here's a quote from the video. A gameplay loop is what keeps players engaged over time. The Sims 4, however, lacks a strong, long-term loop. Here's why: there is no real progression or long-term challenge. I think this is true for any open-ended sandbox game, whether you're playing The Sims 4, The Sims 3 or 2, or Minecraft or any other game of that genre, because with no creative contribution from the player, there is no progression, right? I mean, that's our job as the watcher in this game, or that's even the appeal, is that we have that control and we can steer where the story goes. And so while the game can give you some triggers, and I think some Sims games do this better than others, with that yes and pull and play, the onus is still on the player to steer the ship, right? So coming back to our dream of a forever save file, the only way we can make it happen is if we embrace the truth and lean into our imagination. It takes creative energy, though, to keep the ball rolling. But soap operas seem to manage to have a continuously running, open-ended narrative with storylines that intertwine and evolve over weeks, months, or even years. It's that distinctive open plot structure and complex continuity that keeps them going. So why not for our forever save file? What if we played our save file like a never-ending soap opera? You're already going to come with the drama, so why not take some inspiration from soap operas on how they keep that drama going? But how do soap operas get viewers hooked? And how do they keep them coming back? When you think about it, soap operas actually have a lot in common with the way we already play The Sims. Just like our storylines, soap operas center on families, towns, relationships, feuds, secrets. The setting is usually grounded in some sort of domestic place, one contemporary world or neighborhood. To be honest, sometimes my Sims don't even leave the house. And the stories are usually sentimental, messy, and melodramatic. Sound familiar? So what draws the audience to watch soap operas also aligns in some ways with why we love playing The Sims so much. One of the reasons why soap operas work so well is because they offer viewers an opportunity to escape the routines of their own lives and experience drama and excitement vicariously through fictional characters, which is quite similar to how we use our gameplay as an emotional or creative outlet in The Sims. But maybe they aren't just an escape. In this quote from Cecilia von Feilensen, from Young People Soap Operas and Reality TV, she talks about how soap operas not only offer an opportunity to escape reality, but also gives the viewer hope and the feeling that they matter in a world where they otherwise don't. For context, it's important to note that this was specifically about how people interact with telenovelas in Brazil, so maybe a different culture, different societal structure and all that, but still it makes me wonder if there may be parallels in why we play The Sims. Could it be more than just an escape? So could this be a reason why soap operas surrounding the rich and famous are so popular, and aspirational lifestyles like the soft life aesthetic has had the Sims community in a chokehold for years? I don't know, but maybe food for thought. Then there's the emotional attachment viewers develop with the soap opera cast. And of course we develop with our Sims. It's inevitable, really. Think about it, the viewers are spending every day with these characters when they're watching these daily soap operas, watching them struggle and persevere. And just like long-running soap characters, Sims in a forever save file can become familiar to you, so much so that they can even be a comfort. Like Wesley Kenny, executive producer of the famous soap opera General Hospital, says, "I think people like stories that continue so they can relate to these people. The viewer becomes emotionally involved. There seem to be two attitudes by viewers. One, that the stories are similar to what happened to them in real life, or two, thank goodness that isn't me." So whether we see ourselves in our Sims or use them to live out alternative realities, that growing connection creates emotional stakes that usually make it hard for us to walk away from the story. And the same goes for those soap opera viewers as well. It's also why abandoning a save file later down the line can feel like such a failure. The longer the storyline goes on for, the more time and energy you've invested, the more emotionally invested you've become, and the more it matters to you. Then there's a third thing soap operas do really well that we kind of suck at as Simmers because we like to binge The Sims for hours, and that is keeping their viewers curious and excited for the next part of the story. Here's a snippet from the book Speaking of Soap Operas that touches on why this works. We try to imagine how the story will unfold, and in this way we heighten our own participation in the course of the events. Basically, Alan in this book discusses how soap operas often end episodes with unresolved questions, creating anticipation for the next one. The story is interrupted at an enticing moment, what Alan refers to as narrativus interruptus. So the viewer is forced to imagine what comes next until they finally find out the next day. This gets them involved in the story and excited for the next part. In essence, the end of every episode offers a hook, something unresolved, and that's what keeps people tuning in, the need to know what happens next. This is something we can replicate in our own gameplay by using cliffhangers or unfinished goals to give us a reason to keep returning to our save file. And that brings us back to my forever save formula. It's super simple, let me break it down. Above the line is what I like to call the triangles of drama, because they all have a power of 3. Let's start with the first portion. The H in 3H plus B stands for households, and here's our triangle of drama. Every soap opera has an ensemble cast, which is a group of characters that consistently show up every episode. Each character usually also has a particular role to push the storyline. So for your forever save file, you can come up with your own ensemble cast, the core characters of your story. In the case of my forever save formula, I'm suggesting 3 households that represent different roles that can conflict with each other. So first we have the legacy, which represents tradition and power. This household, or Sims in this household, are steadfast and judgmental. They're quite stubborn. For example, it could be the family matriarch, someone senior usually in the family that has a say, the lead in the family. In Ransom Canyon, there were those 3 legacies I mentioned, and 2 of them, so the heads of 2 of those legacies, were quite stubborn and particularly fond of keeping things as they were, which of course got some pushback from the 3rd legacy that wanted something different from them. The next role is the outsider. This household or people in that household represents aspiration and rebellion. This Sim or Sims in this household challenge the status quo. They can be an outsider in the family like the black sheep, or they can be the newcomer in town kicking up dust. In Ransom Canyon, one of the legacies was the outsider of the trio, pushing for a business decision that everyone else was against. But it was key to get everyone on board to make that decision go past. Then there was a working class family associated with crime, ergo outcast by default because crime, nobody wants to be involved with that. And then there was a new cowboy that arrived in town, hashtag men without shirts. This cowboy definitely came with some baggage and was keen on shaking things up. And then next we have the dreamer household. This household represents identity and hope. They are idealistic and misunderstood, and maybe even a little lost. For example, in Ransom Canyon, there was a teen trying to fight assumptions about who he is, and he was in love with someone seemingly out of their league. Or in another Netflix series that I binge watched not too long ago, called Forever, and this was more of a teenage melodrama, but both of the main characters felt lost at some point during the story and had a lot of angst and anxiety about their future with each other, and also their own futures, like their careers and stuff like that. So this dreamer household, you could be inspired to play the teens of your households in a high school setting where each of the teens represents one of these roles. So you can really think out of the box. So you can think classic household, 3 families, 3 legacies like we had in Ransom Canyon, or you can focus on playing the kids in each household, like if you want like a teenage kind of drama thing going on, which could be really fun. Or one household could just be one single sim who is, that outsider coming from far away. Or even you could have sims within the same household having these different roles. But this is basically just to give you some inspiration, some spark, some core ensemble cast sims that you can use for your forever save file. That will forever be in conflict because, as you can see, each group here, each role kinda doesn't jive completely with the next. Like the legacy will push back on the outsider and vice versa, and the dreamer is just, floating around there, kind of figuring themselves out. And so it can lead to a lot of conflict already if you put all these 3 people in one bucket. And of course, last but not least, we have to add in some backstory. You can come up with new backstory anytime, but it helps to have some basic origin stories as a foundation. It helps you relate to your sims and gives the storylines a starting point. And if you've been following me for a little while on my channel, you know I'm obsessed with backstory. I think it's the literal solution to all your problems when it comes to The Sims. I slap that band-aid on everything. So if you take anything away from this video, then it is to create backstory for your sims. I created a template in Notion that makes it super easy to do so check the link in the description below if you're curious about that. But moving on to the next part of the triangle of drama, we have the 3 Ps. P stands for plot lines, which is basically the red thread running through your storylines. So these are 3 different plot lines you can have amongst those 3 households, within one household, but let's start with the most fun one, romantic entanglement. This could be a secret crush, lost love, love triangles, enemies to lovers, friends with benefits, all sorts. You can really come up with a lot of different constellations here to entangle your different households, the sims in those different households. Another plot line that is sure to add some drama is family conflict. So this could be feuds over money and control. Power is a strong motivator for characters. It could be the threat of losing heritage, which was the case in Ransom Canyon. It could be succession drama or surprise kin. Also both which happened in Ransom Canyon really well. And then last but not least, we have personal ambition. So this could be stolen dreams, pushing through challenges and insecurities. So it actually makes me think of this series Forever, where the kid was really trying to find his way and what he wanted to do with his life. He didn't know. First, he had to figure out what was his passion. He had to actually acknowledge that that was his passion. And then he had a lot of pushback from his parents to go a certain way, to follow a certain path. And he had to figure out for himself, okay, what do I actually want in life? That's where his girlfriend really helped him out and helped nudge him in the right direction. So that's how characters can also influence those different plot lines. And if you combine all 3, you have a great foundation for storylines that can go on for ages and naturally connect sims with others. When you're thinking about these different plot lines and which direction they can go, you can make sure that each of your 3 core households are somehow involved in all 3. Or maybe, you have different romantic entanglement storylines, like in Ransom Canyon, I told you, it's 4 love triangles, all in a different way and form, but try to make it to where they connect the sims from each household so that they're not, independent of each other.
Okay, real talk. If you're anything like me, you care about your sims, like deeply. You've got legacies, storylines, save files that actually mean something to you. But let's be real, it's easy to lose track. One day you're totally invested, and then suddenly you're not. You forget who lives where, what was supposed to happen next, or even why you love that sim in the first place. That's exactly why I made the Sim Guardian. This Notion system helps me stay connected to my sims by giving me one place to track everything. And I mean everything. I can see my entire save file at a glance, who lives where, all the lore, what everyone's working toward. Every sim has their own page for backstory, traits, relationships. I can even see their own businesses and shared memories. And every legacy has its own page as well to save their bloodline, heritage, and history. I can manage my rotational gameplay, challenges, storyline ideas. It's all here. Heck, I can even keep track of my mods and CC in this system. It's the most organized I've ever been. And honestly, it's the easiest it's ever been to keep track, because I don't have to figure out where to start. I've already done the work of setting things up, now I can just fill it in. So yeah, it's $100, but if you're serious about your Sims, it's worth it. Because the stories you're playing, they deserve to be remembered.
Now the 3 S's. The S here stands for spaces. So each of these different spaces has its own purpose for the storylines in your save file. First, we have the central gathering place. Soap operas often have a few common spaces where characters can meet up or casually bump into each other, like a bar, an office, or recreational space of some sort. If it's a space the character has to regularly visit, like the workplace, then this is especially juicy for when there's any tension between those characters. It can increase the conflict because they're forced to run into each other, right? The confrontation is like unavoidable. And then you have the intimate home base, where your Sims can regroup, have one-on-ones, or maybe the offhand affair. In the series Forever, it seemed like the dining room, kitchen area was where the teens had the most interactions with their parents. Sometimes, fun and happy-go-lucky, and sometimes they had really hard and candid conversations with their parents in this space. So when you're thinking intimate home base, what are the spaces in the home that are places where your Sims can interact with each other, can have meaningful moments? So for example, the dinner table, the home garden, garage workshop. What are places that are important to your Sims? These could also be places that if they lost, it would be a big hit to them. So you can think also, home fire, it ruins the home garden, or the garage workshop with all the crafted items. That could also add conflict just in itself. And then last but not least, the wild card, an emotionally charged, potentially secret space. The bluffs immediately come to mind when I think about The Sims 4, but this could also be an old barn, a supernatural hideout, for example. These can be spaces for secret raves, culty meetups, or even a crime hub, where crime happens. Things can be a bit off-kilter here maybe, because they're, unfamiliar, maybe there's a dark history, or maybe there's, something supernatural going on, right? Supernatural hideout. But it doesn't necessarily have to have a bad vibe. It could be a special place where lovers meet or where good magic happens. All of these spaces, the central gathering place, intimate home base, the emotionally charged space, they are all prime real estate for drama, for unexpected run-ins and conflict, where secrets can be created, where they can be told, where they can be kept. And then we have the big W. The W stands for Web of Intrigue. At this part of the formula, we want to create a connection between all those households, plot lines, and spaces that we came up with. And at the center could be, for example, a shared secret, an unresolved event, or love. For example, in Ransom Canyon, a big secret to uncover is the truth behind the death of an heir. Then we have our newcomer cowboy also hiding that he is the secret heir to another one of those legacies and is harboring a secret revenge plot. Very scandalous, very fun. It can be a bit overwhelming to figure out how everything's connected though, so you can use brainstorming tools to visualize the potential connections. For example, Milanote is quite popular and easy to use. Its free plan is limited to 100 notes, so you don't get too far with it, but that could be enough for one mind map. Then there's Boardmix, my personal favorite. I snagged a lifetime deal for that a little while ago for just $30, but you can still get it at a one-time price for $100, which seems like a lot, but it's well worth it considering you're paying at least $120 for the annual Milanote plan, and that's every year you're paying that. So I'm a one lifetime deal kind of girly. Also worth a mention is the Sims Legacy Hub. This app is designed actually more to save your family trees, but I've always thought it would be much better for keeping track of relationships in general, since it's more of a free-form web-like setup. It also comes with a free plan, but its subscription plans are significantly cheaper than Milanote, so they're very moderately priced. It's still limited though in the sense that you can't do anything beyond visualizing those connections between the Sims and maybe adding a few details to each Sim, like there's skills I think and stuff like that, but you can't really go deep in note-taking with that app. So it depends on what you want to do. If you want to just create a simple network of connections, then I think the Sims Legacy Hub is more than enough. I personally like the versatility of a note-taking app that lets you have mind maps and also other creative brainstorming tools, so I really like Boardmix. Here is an example of how you can visualize connections. So this is a map of connections between Sims that Taffy Cake over on Reddit shared of their Sims. It isn't the best example of forming a web around a core secret, but it sure has a lot of intrigue going on. It literally looks like an episode of Grey's Anatomy, everyone with everyone. Lumi kissing her best friend's ex? And then we have Rosie and Evelyn sharing the same situationship. It's giving Sabrina Carpenter's taste. And then Evelyn over here has a huge crush on Lakshanya, but hates his sister for some reason. I'm loving the homoerotic friendship that Frankie and Tyler have got going on here. But how is there only one official couple in this chart? Like, only Tanya and Odina are officially dating, and everybody is just like hooked up, situationship, kissed, affair. It's wild. And then Tanvik, Pranshi, Kay, they're just hanging out on the sidelines looking at this mess, hoping not to get entangled. And then we have Sean over here trying to get involved, but he's not sure yet quite how. It's wild, and I love it. So that's the big W, web of intrigue. But last but not least, let's dig into the last bit of the formula, in which the C stands for cliffhangers, for the narrativus interruptus. Instead of blasting through your storylines in a hazy binge, take a step back and end each session with some unresolved drama or unfinished goals. Or you could provoke a switch in the story by meddling with a relationship, coming up with a plot twist, or revealing new backstory. This can be backstory you've had in your back pocket the whole time, or that you come up with on the spot. It's really fun to let any secrets from your Sims past resurface slowly. And you can find inspiration for these plot twists not only in backstory, but your existing lore as well. You can explore current households, any past relationships, maybe someone can make a comeback, or the classic ex can come to the wedding kind of deal. Is there any potential for family secrets to come out, or a new romance? Or are there any story seeds to be found in an old abandoned legacy home, or maybe a community lot that had importance at one time and could be revisited? Bonus tip, sign up to my weekly llama letters for a new plot twist every Wednesday. And so if you hit a wall and you don't really know where to take your story, I've got you covered. The link is in the description below. And of course, you want to keep track of all that canon, all that rich drama that has played out generation for generation of those intertwined legacies. So watch this video to see how I use Notion to keep track of my legacy lore across all of my save files. So that is my Sims 2 lore, my Sims 3 lore, and my Sims 4 lore. Having all of that history in one place is also super useful for when I want to tap into that lore to inspire new storylines.